So in this video we're just going to have a look at another scene and another gouache sketch, and these are just quick exercises to look at some color and some light. So we've got some people over here, we have some trees, something on the right, maybe some bushes. We have a little structure here on the left hand side and some more people in the distance, and then of course the sky. So really just making up an interesting scene as we go, and we can of course add and adjust. So the first thing I'm going to do then is just create the sky. So to do that I'm just using some blue lake and some white. So just mix in some of that. Now I'm working on recycled paper, so it does kind of behave a little bit differently and does give off different kinds of textures as a result. So and sometimes even tends to flake up, but these are just sketches, so it works just fine on the paper. Right, so here we have the sky, and you'll see I'm not I'm just working quite loosely. And we'll add in some white. That'll just help to give us that nicer sky look, and also just kind of binds the paint a little bit better. I'm actually using acrylic white, and it works well with the gouache. I'm only doing that because I don't have any gouache white at the moment. So the acrylic white works just as well, also water-based of course. Right, so there we have a bit of a blue sky, and then what I'm going to do is just lighten it more towards the bottom. Right, so we just right, so no particular, we're just blocking in that sky. So I think we're pretty much done then as far as the blue sky goes. And because it's gouache and it's opaque, we can paint over it as we go. Alright, the next thing that we're going to do then is just start blocking in some of the other pieces. So we do have the structure on here. So that's probably going to be some kind of a white color with maybe a slightly yellowed or brown finish. Maybe it's just that it's old and it's a bit discolored. So we'll go in there with something like that, and then we have a bit of perspective happening here. So that just does also then help with the creating an interesting space for the eye. And then we have the window. Now the window, we have a choice. We can either go dark, or we can look at putting some of the blue sky in there as if reflecting. So the window would in all likelihood is probably something along those lines, and then inside that window it would either be a slightly blue reflection of the sky. So I think what we're going to do is just block that in, and we'll come back to the color we're going to go with there. Then on the right hand side we have some bushes or trees. We haven't decided yet, so I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start working on those. So to do that we're going to look at some French ultramarine and yellow. So just getting some going here on my palette. Right, so we're going to do something over here, and then we're also going to have that extend up into the skyline. So, and I think what we're going to do is we'll have the light come in from the left hand side. So we're just going to do some of this foliage here, or whatever it might be. So we just have that. So I'm not trying to create any shapes yet. I'm just, we're just going to build up as we go. So, and really, a lot of these paintings will only come together as we go, because we don't have anything set in stone. So already though, we can see we're creating a nice kind of look over here. And so we've got our tree coming in here, or bushes or something. Right. Now you'll see this paper is kind of a bit flaky, but that's because it's recycled. The surface isn't really sealed. I haven't sealed it with anything. And then, right, so there we have something here. And then in the foreground, we're probably just going to have some grasses growing in the front. And to do that, I'm going to go with some yellow ochre. And we'll just have some grass growing here in the front. So we'll just go with something like that. And because this is just like an exercise in color and blocking, we're not paying too much attention to all the details. So we bring in some purples. So all the purples and stuff are already brought in with ultramarine and crimson. I have a very limited color palette here that I'm working with. So, okay, so we're building up this foreground here. And as we build that up, you'll see that it then just helps to push the structure back. So, and I'm going to add a little bit of highlight in there. Just make it a bit lighter. And then that way, right, so there we go. And now we just a couple of highlights. So, being a bit of a dry brush, we get this kind of grassy feel to it quite easily. And then on the other side, we're going to go for that as well. So, just some nice light colors. Going to add a bit more the yellow ochre for the right hand side and mix that in. A bit of the crimson, a bit of ultramarine to, create some depth in the color. So there we go. Now you'll see it is a pretty quick sketch, so I'm not going to be spending a lot of time perfecting. And also the other reason for doing this is so that we just get to work quickly, and because we're not concerned about mistakes, actually learn how to do stuff quickly, which means that maybe we don't pay attention to too much detail, but then by not paying too much attention to detail, we learn to create some of those happy accidents that you have in your painting, which can sometimes deliver quite a nice result. So just doing that at the moment. And the other thing that I want to do now is, just with that green in the background, I just want to get that looking more like a tree or bush or something along those lines. So we're just going to go with some ultramarine and medium yellow, and then we're just going to mix up a kind of a green Make it a little bit greener. And there we go. And then we'll add some highlight to that. Right, so we're just creating the impression that there is something there. We're not quite sure what it is. Could be a bush, could be a tree, and then bring it maybe forward a bit there. And so this painting doesn't have a specific reference, so kind of making it up as we go along. So it does mean that we can get quite creative, and maybe what we're going to do then is pull some of that green into here. So maybe some darker, some lighter. Right, so there we've created an area of something, and then we'll just do a little bit of that. Right, so there we have, you'll see we have this foreground, and then pushing back there we have the tree, and then I'm just going to also then in that tree have this darker area here, which is going to push back a little bit more. And right, so there we have kind of an interesting space there on the right hand side. And then of course we've got these people having a chit chat here. So that was the idea, and what I'd like to do now is just explore the idea on that window first, to see if we're going to go with a sky reflection. So I think what I'll do is just bring in, if that was going to be the reflection, so that would have a kind of blue to it, and then that would be a very kind of, so we're going to come back to that, but you know, that would have been the idea. So we have this kind of blue reflection of the sky, and then what we'll do is we'll bring in some other shapes there, just to maybe create the impression that maybe there's a cloud or two. So I'm just going to, instead of being a flat blue, we'll create that. So that's the reflection of whatever's happening in the sky. So yeah, that creates a nice reflection there. And then what we'll do is we'll just define the roof of that structure a bit. So what I'm going to do there is go for a nice darkish, kind of reddish color. It's quite often that you'll see. So just mixing up a bit more here. And I'm going with crimson here with a bit of burnt umber and a bit of ultramarine. Right. And we're just going to create that down the side. So remember, the light is coming from the left, and then it heads over, and then here we have some people. And then what we also need to do as a result of the shadow is we want to make the front of the building a little bit darker, because it is going to be in the shade, but not too much. So it's almost like we just want white in the shade. So I'm going to just change that color a bit. So we're just going to do a shade all the way to the top. And then on the front we're going to need a window, and in this case we're going to go much darker, because that window is definitely going to be in the shade and it won't be reflecting the sky. So there we'll definitely look at something a bit darker. Paper's breaking up a bit there, but let that dry. And now we want to do the people talking to each other, so we want to add a bit of color here. So I think in this case I'm going to go with the ultramarine, and I'm also going to go with some brilliant red. And what we're going to do first then is just kind of mix that up, and then here we have a person, and you'll see now how this comes together, and I'm not sure how that's going to look. And then we have another person over here, so we're just going to block them in first. Right, and we're going to have a head, and they'll be chatting to each other on the side of the road there. I know it doesn't look like anybody yet, but that's going to come. And then I'm going to add some medium yellow. So that'll be the just maybe the color of that top, and then I'll just go with a darker color for the rest of the outfit. Okay, so they're kind of standing there chatting, and let's just bring the arm out a bit here. Okay, and then let's just do something about the head. Yeah, so they're just having a chat here, and good old chin wag. Yeah, so paper's not doing too well here. Alright, so there they standing and chatting, and they're talking to somebody else, and now we'll just work on that person's outfit. So we'll go, with something like that, and with this one, and right, and then the paper on this particular page is not behaving at all. Normally it doesn't break up as much as it is now. And then of course we'll have the face, and then what we'll do now is we'll bring down the arm, and no particular something like that, and then we just want to create the impression that there are two people talking. So that would be the front with a bit of a highlight, and then the person that they're talking to, just a bit of a highlight then down the back where the sun's hitting them, and then of course a little bit darker on the other side. So you'll see not any particular detail. So and then what we need to do is block in some road. So let's do that. The road is really going to just be more like, or the path will be yellow ochre, and that's going to stretch up between them. And then of course we'll need some shadow just to anchor them. So that's what we're going to do here. Normally the paper doesn't behave quite as badly, but okay, so there we have that. And yeah, so there we have the two people standing together, and you'll see that I'm not trying to paint the people really. So there we have them having a chin wag and a chat, and then maybe we just have slightly brighter color there. Okay, so not the handsomest looking couple, but you know, that's what we got. And then so something like that. And then what we can do is maybe just fill in there with a bit of blue. Make that really light blue. Bit of light blue there. So that's just the right. So there's a bit of blue coming through there, and we just need to do a little bit of blue in between them. So let's just make it a bit bluer. So normally it would have been better to have painted in that before the people, but alright, so there we have them talking to each other, and now what we need to do is just finish off that house. So I'm going to go with a nice dark mix. Right, so there we have the kind of dark, and then we have to go really dark on the inside of that door or window, and maybe along the top, and then so just doing ultramarine blue and a bit of crimson there. So you know, that's where we're going to go, and then I'm just going to lighten a bit inside, and then if that was the glass, then also kind of make a slightly interesting space. Right, so that's going to be, and also being the window, it'll have very distinct lines, being man-made. So now that we've done that, and you'll see the window is starting to pull through, then what I'm going to do is just go back to that really dark color and then just do that straight line. Right, so that would be the window, and then here I'm going to do that very dark as well, just to indicate, you know, and then something along those lines. And then what we also need to do is just have the house finish up against the back of that person on the left. So we want to bring up that color there, and we also want the dark, because that dark's going to be the roof of the house, and we don't want that white space there. Right, so now you can start to see the structure coming together as we just, get our engineering right here, and it's not perfect. Right, and then maybe what we want to do is indicate that maybe it's a corrugated structure, which means it'll have little lines of corrugation. So it might have just these little lines here. And then of course, being corrugated, it won't be as straight. You might see some undulation. So, we're going to go with something like that. And maybe what we'll also do then is just have a little bit of a, and not too dark, but maybe just have a slightly darker, something like that. So that would be the kind of like that little house on the side there. And now what we can do is just fill up that space there. Right, paper's not really working well. And if truth be told, maybe we want to bring the blue down. Right, so that's just a really quick sketch. What we can also do now is just blend a bit here. There we go. So there we have the person on the left talking to somebody on the right, and yeah, they're just having a general kind of chin wag. And what I'm going to do as well is just here at the bottom is just, don't know if you can hear the guinea fowl on the roof making a bit of a racket today. Right, and then yeah, so we just adding some dark here in the base. As it goes up, the highlights will kick in, and yeah, then it'll be a little bit lighter. So that's just a quick sketch and a little bit of a perspective pointing up, where you have the two people chatting, and then a little house on the side, some grass, and yeah, that was just the purpose of the exercise. Keep it simple and just to play with color. So super, I hope you enjoyed watching that. Thank you for watching.